guys, and welcome back to another episode of Amesie's Corner. How are you all doing out there? So I got a special treat for today, a car I didn't really know existed. And I have this kind of an unassuming red little 1988 BMW 325, but it just so happens to be an iX. Now, I didn't know this car existed. I didn't know this was a piece of BMW history right here. I've been told that this is the first all-wheel drive BMW, and I kind of find that hard to believe, seeing BMW was around during some major world wars. I can't imagine that they didn't design an all-wheel drive vehicle back then, but maybe everyone's just trying to tell me that this is the first all-wheel drive car. But yeah, what we have here is a really cool little Survivor up here. These things rotted out pretty bad up here in New England. They just didn't last, and I guess the all-wheel drive was more intended for the northern climate people. Everyone that up here wanted a BMW like this, but we have our nasty winters, and you know, these things are pretty horrible front-wheel drive, rear-wheel drive front engine. They're pretty horrible in the snow, but BMW made an all-wheel drive version, and here it is. Now, must not have performed the way they wanted or sold the way they wanted, because I think it was a better part of a decade until they come out with another all-wheel drive vehicle. So why don't we take a little look at this one? It's actually real early in the morning. I had to get in real early. We've been so busy lately. I don't have time to jump off the conveyor belt of cars that I got to fix to review a lot of these things that come in. Now, first thing I want to notice on this thing, seems like it's been sitting an awful long time, and it's home to some critters. But nice interior, nice and clean. Everything's where it needs to be. No tears in anything. Headliners all good and all that. If you look at it, the little mice have been in here doing their thing. So, you know, strangely enough, though, I mean, it smells a little like mice, but not nearly as bad as I thought, or you would think. So let's pop the hood and take a look under there. This has the 2.5 liter engine, I believe, making somewhere in the neighborhood of 169, 170 horsepower. 6-cylinder, there it is. Not too bad under here, but what you would expect from a car from 1988. All in all, pretty decent shape. Everything's where it needs to be. Everything's all there. Nice. Yeah. Look at these inlets, brake cooling inlets. We'll take a look at that in a minute. We'll get this thing up on the lift and look under it and see what makes it tick and what kind of conditions it's in, and how the all-wheel drive layout looks on it and works out on it. Neat. Oh yeah, we got some mice activity in here too. I'm in your car eating your wires. And I see some sort of amp system. Oh yeah, look at all the mice. Now, I wouldn't necessarily call it mouse damage, but definitely needs a good clean out. This thing's in here today. We got a gas tank in the back. Now, I've already taken a look at this on the lift. I've pulled the covers off the tank to see what's going on. When the owner fills the car up, it smells of fuel, and what happened is this vent here rotted out in the car. The seat's kind of just hanging here, but I'm not really going to show you. Just take my word for it. This is rotted out around here, and we're just waiting for the sending units to show up. Probably gonna replace that tank next week. It's actually Friday today. So yeah, why don't we get this thing in, get it up on the lift, and see what makes this car really cool and really special. Well, alright guys, we got her up on the lift. Let me grab my trusty film and flashlight. Why don't we start at the rear like usual and work our way forward. So, first thing I notice, I'm under the car. I can definitely smell that fuel leak from here. So, yeah, definitely needs to have that tank fixed. But all in all, first indications, all these areas on these cars that are kind of susceptible to rust aren't really that bad. No, not that bad at all. Let's go a little perimeter search on this thing. We got a couple of rusty fuel lines, no big deal. We're gonna be fixing that as well, but the rockers don't look too bad on the outside. I know I saw a little bit going on. Oh yeah, there it is. There it is. I guess I just can't show you guys a rust-free classic car up here in New England. Every car we got that you'd think is cool is going to have something going on like that. And this side here I thought was going to be worse because I noticed when we were walking around I saw a little bit of that, and yeah, the fender's rotted out. So it looks like the fender's rotted out on this car. You know, it is what it is. It was meant to be run in the cold weather and the snow with its all-wheel drive system. Another thing I want to mention about this car, I noticed it's got this stainless steel SS 409, whatever that means, exhaust on it, mid-range performance exhaust. It sounds great. We'll get this thing out on the road and you'll hear it. This thing just makes such a nice sound. Interesting, updated cat. They actually bothered to put a converter back into it. 2-into-1 exhaust that all these BMW 6-cylinders use the 2 separate exhaust manifolds. So anyway, let's look at the suspension and driveline. Now, I don't think there's a whole lot going on back here that isn't in every one of these cars, being they are front engine, rear wheel drive. Pretty big differential for a little car, considering this car is about the size, maybe slightly larger than a Miata. And a Miata has a much smaller differential. Similar setup, double swing A-arms or control arms. It's like a double swing axle. Yeah, A-arm right there. Not connected in any way other than the sway bar, which it does have sway bars right there. But interesting swing axle. A lot of the Euro cars use that. And then you can see the knuckle is really just supported by its thickness. So the hub knuckle is kind of weird. Usually you would have a double system, but that means this suspension is going to have a little bit of geometry change throughout its travel, but not a ton. Supposedly decent handling cars. We'll see when we get it out on the road. Disc brakes front and rear. Working our way forward. There's that tank I got to pull out. Looks like you have to remove the drive shaft and probably drop the exhaust down to get that out. I'm not really looking forward to that. Hopefully that tank comes in and out easily. I can see the thing's got some upgraded brake hoses here, and because the old ones looks like they rotted out. Typical for a car of this age. Working our way forward, we get to the transfer case, and look at that, a real always on transfer case. Being all-wheel drive, you can't shut these off. There's no mechanism to disconnect the front end, so it is always in all-wheel drive. And this the 5-speed transmission. We can see this front drive shaft goes to the differential, bolted to the oil pan. Boy, they really went back to this design on the new ones. I know all the new X-Drive BMWs using almost exactly the same setup. So, here we go. Almost exactly the same setup as this, where the has a real transfer case, transfers the power to the front through the oil pan. Uses the oil pan as a structural member, and there all that is. They still do that to this day. That same plan. Front suspension very similar to all the late model 3 Series and some of the other ones. I'm sorry, I don't know my nomenclature of the numbers of the BMW. There's just between BMW and Mercedes-Benz and all the other cars, there's a lot to know. But I know this suspension system and the way these control arms mount are very, very similar to the newer ones. Upper McPherson struts, disc front brakes to be expected. And then I like that this has an actual power steering rack. A lot of cars of this era, I mean, not necessarily BMW, but a lot of cars of this era had a dual system, a pitman arm, idler arm, steering box system. But nothing beats the crispness of a good rack. Nothing beats a good rack. So we see these air intakes we mentioned earlier. These air intakes, and if you look in, there's actually vanes to direct the airflow where it needs to go. Hopefully this works out, you can kind of see it. But these have these tubes, which someone's mounted HID ballast to it. I don't know if I would have mounted anything to those, but yeah, you can see where the air Comes out of the fender liner and is positioned to blow right into those little holes. Are they going to see them? Yeah, there they are. Those little holes right there to help cool the brakes when you're getting on it in the canyons. Yeah, nice, easy to work on water pump. Well, that's one thing about these older BMWs that the new ones certainly don't copy. How easy it is to get to stuff. Look at the starter. I can get right in to change a starter. Get right in to change a water pump or an AC compressor. Your belts are all nice and easy to get to. Nice layout. Tell you, what's old is new again, huh? There's the brake ducting on that side. Yeah, nice car, cool car. So I guess these things are worth a lot of money in other parts of the world. They're probably worth a lot of money here, although I never actually see an iX or an iX. I think that mixed up because they switched over to X Drive and all that. But you don't really see a lot of these. These didn't survive real well up here. All right, guys. Well, one other thing I want to touch on is the tires. Looks like these wheels, these steel wheels, are probably a set of they're winter runners there. I don't know when the last time this car was run. It's late summer, early autumn here in New England, and they're probably just going to keep these on for the winter. And although I don't know if I would drive this car in the winter, I'd imagine this is supposed to have some sort of alloy multi-spoke wheel on it, some special wheel treatment for the all-wheel drive version maybe. Again, I don't know a lot about this car, not a lot of these up here, and I had no idea that this was the first all-wheel drive BMW. I thought it was something they've done since BMW was BMW. You know, there has to be another all-wheel drive BMW before this. Didn't they make trucks for the war too? I know they made airplanes engines. Well, anyways, why don't we get this thing down off the lift? Let's get it out on the road, and that's where the car actually counts, right? So let's see how this thing goes down the road. I know it sounds amazing, so let's go for a ride.
This year, the world's automakers will once again offer hordes of imitation BMWs. Meanwhile, for under $25,000, BMW offers something infinitely more valuable. The new BMW 325i. Why settle for a copy when you can own an original?
All right. So, first thing I notice about this car, really tight. It's not a lot of room. I kind of feel like I have more room in the Sonnet. I think that's because the center console kind of feel like I'm tightening it, but I think that's a good thing. I think it's because feel more like I'm wearing the car than I'm driving in it. So anyways, first thing I want to say, and we've mentioned it before, this thing has a heck of a sound to it. That stainless or whatever company makes those cheaper exhausts, I just like Flowmasters on all my stuff, but boy, this one really sounds good. Why don't you guys take a quick listen to it? Yeah, hell of a sound, huh? Oh man, I could just listen to it all day long. So anyways, my research indicates it has somewhere about 169 horsepower. Not a ton by today's standards, but probably not bad back in the day considering what was out there. This would have been like before the Miata was officially out. 88, 89, and 90 was when that came out. That's kind of the car I'm a little bit comparing it to, I guess, just because it's similar in size, but honestly I don't think it's really an honest comparison. So the shifter shifts nice and slick. Oh, that sound. Oh, what a sound. Not a lot 170 horsepower. Honestly, I'd say it feels more like 130. But then again, being an all-wheel drive, I expect this car to weigh a lot more than it looks. A lot more metal in that transfer case, drive shaft, and front differential to move around than a normal E30 would have. Get on it a little bit here. Yeah, not real fast. Sounds a lot faster than it is, that's for sure. A little bit of body roll, but that might just be some of those sidewalls of those tires. Those winter tires kind of have a high sidewall to them, and the deep tread kind of gives you a little bit of squirm and a little bit of more float than you normally would have in a car like this. But nice and crisp with that rack. Normally a quick maneuver like that, you'd kind of lost in translation with a pitman arm, idler arm steering box setup. Yeah, not a lot of power. Man, I could just listen to it all day long though. Good sound, but not too loud. Nice. So now that I'm driving the car, I feel like the seats really got a hold of me. These side bolsters in the seat really hold you in. Steering wheel, the driving position is really good, along with the pedals being really nicely placed. Little hard hairpin here. Nice, very nice. Very fun car. It's just sporty enough to be fun. Maybe a little more fun, but not so sporty that you feel like you're driving a roller skate around. Run, little squirrel. Being late summer, man, squirrel's just a kamikaze across the street. So the smell, I definitely can tell there's mice in here. Might even still be a few in here. Out of the road, you dumb squirrel. Jeez Louise. Yeah, I definitely smell the critters in here. You can smell their activity, but it looks like it smells like it. There may not be a big nest in here, but definitely gotta go through it and get all that stuff out of there. There's nothing worse than a car like this just reeking a mouse urine for the rest of its life. You know, something to keep in mind when you store a car is animals can get in. Cruises nicely at slower speeds, just driving around town, tooling around town. As a daily driver, you can see this wouldn't be an exhausting car to drive. I can also smell the fuel a little bit. Boy, does this bring me back. The smell of leaking fuel, mouse house in an old car. Brings me back to my childhood where all I ever got was old cars. Ah, the sound. It's a lot of fun. I'll tell you, it probably couldn't pull the skin off of chocolate pudding, but I bet you this thing can hold its speed though around corners. I'm not really gonna push it on those snow tires. And being an old car, she needs some time to wake up and get back on the road. You know, I don't wanna find its faults on the road test. Not today. Steering is nice and straight for an older vehicle. enough together to heel tow it. That sound. Oh, that sound. So we got my hairpin coming up. I'm just letting the traffic get ahead a little bit. Or my S-curve, I call it. Here we go. We got people walking around. Oh well. Wasn't able to get on it. Big truck in the way. So, what a cool little car. Something I didn't know existed till this one showed up. You know, I did not know that BMW hasn't made all-wheel drive cars all along. I just attributed that they've always been some all-wheel drive version of their vehicles in there. So I learned something new all the time, guys. Learned something new. Anyways, what do you guys know about this cool little car? I got a lot of people. I shared a few photos of it on the Facebook group, and people were telling me these things are highly desirable across the pond, worth a lot of money. Over here, not so much. You pick up a car like this, maybe not the all-wheel drive version. I'd probably get a car like this for a few grand, in a shape comparable to this one. Well, anyways, guys, like I said, it's early in the morning. I see customers lining up out the door. Can't just play with the cool cars all day, as much as I'd love to, and as much as I'd love to show you guys. Well, anyways, guys, thanks for watching. Awesome little car. I never thought I'd get to drive it or even know about it. But on that note, and until next time, guys, keep it out of the cabbage.